Welcome to Forensic Friday,
where we examine the intersection of true crime, psychology, and the heart of being human in the middle of it all. Hello.
Hi.
It's almost like we haven't worked together all day and started the day presenting together.
Oh my gosh, I know.
I know it's been a day.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just catching up on my TikTok for like 2 seconds, and I saw a concept that comes from Sex and the City, and I want to run it past you before we get into our thing, because I've
What?
never heard this before. Get into our thing. Get into our episode.
I never really watched it, so if I have to have watched it religiously, then I
No,
won't know.
it's just a concept that originated on Sex and the City.
Okay.
So the concept is, I have to like literally pull my TikTok back up so I can remember what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's called, yes. Okay, the taxi cab theory. Have you
Okay.
heard of the taxi cab theory?
Mm-mm.
Okay. The origin of the taxi cab theory goes back to Miranda Hobbs on Sex and the City, who compared men to taxis. And she
Okay.
said their light readiness, right? You know, the light on top of the taxi turns on when they're emotionally prepared to settle down. And they tend to commit to the first suitable partner available once they're ready.
Okay.
Okay. And then so I dug into this. I'm like, I've never heard this before and I want to know. Obviously, relationships are a little bit more complex than this, but it is interesting to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Probably men and women, both, but men more so.
Mm-hmm.
When they decide they're ready to have a family and commit and settle down, are they more likely to quote unquote, and this is what this woman was saying in her TikTok, quote unquote, settle
Mm-hmm.
with somebody that they're with because all of a sudden they're ready
Right.
and they don't want to like roll the dice on trying to find another person once they're ready to be in a relationship. It's kind of like how when women turn different ages, I think 30 historically has been a big one for women where it's like, wait a minute, what am I doing with my life?
Mm-hmm.
It's the Rachel Green Friends debacle where she's like,
Oh yeah.
wait, if I want to get married, then I
Well,
need to I want to date for 2 years and then I want to be married a couple years before I have kids. And you start like reverse engineering.
yeah.
Do men have a process like this? Would be my question.
Oh, interesting question.
Are they more likely to settle based on their internal, all of a sudden readiness?
I think they settle later, like it's so funny. Preston and I just had this conversation. So when Preston and I first met, he and I like, were hanging out. We weren't really dating yet, but we were hanging out. And he was like, yeah, I could see myself getting married at 40. And I was like, we'll be friends.
40?
Yes. And I
His
remember I
little
was like,
golden retriever heart said 40.
yeah, he was in a weird phase. But
Is your mic on? It sounds different than normal. Okay, let's plug that mic in, Natters. Like the professional podcasters we are.
gosh, hold on.
You're so funny. I was like, that doesn't sound like normal.
No, because it's not.
You get a pass. It's been a day.
Okay. Now it's on. Let me double check it. Um, but yeah, so he was like, we could get married. I could get married in my 40s. Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Um, or when I'm 40. And I was like, I very clearly was not interested in that option.
No,
Um, so he dropped that really fast on
because
me.
how long would that have been? Because you guys, how old were
I'm
you when you met?
27.
So
He wasn't saying him and I would get married at 40. He was just saying this was like literally probably the first time we ever hung out. And we were just talking about like past relationships and whatever. And he was like, yeah,
yeah.
I could just see myself getting married like when I'm 40. And I was like, cool. I don't see that for me. I literally was like, yeah, that's not going to be my story.
Like, oh, cute. Good for
Yeah,
you.
no, literally. And then he was
That'd be
like,
great.
yeah, that's basically what I said. And then he did not mention that again after that.
No, no,
Um, but I think
that's funny.
men go through that maybe like later in life when they realize like Like maybe they ask themselves like, what am I doing with myself? You know?
I think some men probably do some version of that. But some men, I mean, I met Garrett, we were 20, hook, line, and sinker, done.
Hmm.
Like, that's it. We didn't question it. We didn't torture it. We didn't, we just were good.
Hmm.
And he's still just my person. I think we both knew fast.
Hmm.
But I do think that men who stay single a little bit longer
Hmm.
may have a similar dynamic. Like their friends start having kids and
Yeah.
having weddings. Like we were some of the first ones to get married. So I didn't go through that process of like wondering if I would find my person or dating a lot of people before I found my person. So
Hmm.
I know that that takes a toll on people when you start
Hmm.
looking at your age and deciding, well, I want kids, my buddies are getting married, I'm starting to get in a different life stage than my friends or
Hmm.
or this I want to make sure I'm in the same one, whatever.
Right.
I just think that's really interesting because I do think when men make up their mind about something, they can be very women can too, but I could see a man being like, "Okay, I'm with a good human. I know I want a family. Let's just do this."
Hmm.
You know, I don't know that that's even a bad thing necessarily, but I think Sex in the City it was a little bit like you don't want to be the girl who they like settle with to have kids.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Just like women, a man
Hmm.
doesn't want to be the guy that you choose just to have kids. Like I think maybe there's a male
Right.
equivalent of that. I don't know, it's just interesting. I've never thought about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It is interesting.
Taxi cab theory.
I feel like in general, you see that. Like, I remember in college, and especially in the Christian community,
Oh, yes.
I think like, or people want to get married early and fast. So
Yeah.
they have like their good Christian spouse and then
Yes.
have their kids. But now we're seeing like a really big influx of divorce in the Christian community
100%.
because they got married too early
Yes.
and had kids. And now they're like, wait a minute, I don't think I like you that much.
Well, you know what's weird? I was thinking about this the other day. My parents were so cool. They know me really well, so they trust me. This is what my dad said. The whole I got a shotgun on the front porch thing.
Hmm.
We have to do an episode with our dads because this is what I love about both of our dads.
I don't know
My
if what you're
dad,
going to say is going to be true about my dad, but continue.
no, no, I think it is because I've seen him with you.
Hmm.
Your dad thinks you are amazing. He thinks you're
Hmm.
strong. He thinks you're capable.
Hmm.
My dad thinks I am amazing. He thinks I'm strong. He thinks I'm capable. My
Hmm.
dad was not the shotgun on the front porch guy. Maybe your dad was, but
My dad was a mix.
but
So
my
he
dad
he
also
made it
knows I
known
can
that they
take
were
care of myself.
my dad made it known that there were guns
Sure.
with
But
past boyfriends.
also there may be some Louisiana going on there.
Oh,
But
Louisiana, and he's like 78, 77.
100%. But he believes, I've watched him with you. He does not obsess over what you're doing. He's not worried about you all the time that you're not safe. Like
Hmm.
he knows you can take care of yourself. I was really scared when I met Gare that my
Hmm.
parents were going to be like, "Girl, you have plans. You have grad school, you have all these things you want to
Hmm.
do." I'm 20 years old. Like
Hmm.
literally, Gare, we didn't get married at 20, but we were serious at 20.
Hmm.
And we literally went to Vegas and Garrett couldn't even gamble. So when we go to Vegas for CrimeCon, that's the first time we've been in Vegas that he's
Aw,
old enough to drink and or gamble.
same. I haven't
So
been to Vegas since high school.
we're gonna have a blast. But what I love about my parents is my dad, when I sat down to talk to him about it, he was like, I see how he makes you feel, and I
Hmm.
trust you. So if you say this is a good human, I don't know somebody who could pick a better human than you. Like you're a
Hmm.
good human picker.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, that is so empowered of my dad. Now, my mom and dad got married young and have been very happy and have had a great marriage. So
Hmm.
I think they had a different frame of reference. But I was thinking about Mac. I'm like, if Mac comes up to me when he's 20 and wants to get married, I am gonna be, I don't know. I would love to be the same way my parents were, but I would be lying if there isn't a part of me that's like, oh, that's so young. Like he's 10
Hmm.
now. That's 10 years. 10
Hmm.
years from now, is he going to be ready to choose the person that he will have for the rest of his life? Just crazy. It's
No,
crazy
I
to think
know.
about. And my son's a forever heart, so I already know. Like,
Hmm.
Listen, I don't think he's going to be long for the single world. I just
Yeah.
don't. He's a
Yeah.
lover, you know.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. No, that's crazy to think about.
Ask Preston for me. You ask him. Say, hey, Janine has this theory, and you could look it up on your phone, and and I want to know what Preston thinks. I'm going to ask Garrett too. If the
Okay.
taxi cab thing is a thing.
We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Southeast Counseling Center. Southeast Counseling Center is a 501c3 nonprofit mental health provider right here in Parker, Colorado, conveniently located just off major highways. We serve the whole family, from play therapy for kids to couples and family therapy, trauma treatment, psychological testing, and specialized groups. Access matters. That's why Southeast Counseling Center accepts Medicaid, TriWest, and victim compensation, and also offers a community subsidy program to help people who fall in the gap between Medicaid and traditional insurance coverage. And because we're a nonprofit, every dollar donated by the community goes directly towards providing treatment services for people who need help. Prefer to meet at home? Telehealth is available statewide so anyone in Colorado can access our services. To get started, call 720-842-5553 or fill out our secure web inquiry form at secounseling.org. Southeast Counseling Center, care that is accessible, compassionate, and rooted in the community. Okay, he's going to have to look up what that means, but
I know. Well, I did too. So this woman was like, I got married and then I'm pregnant and now I'm 15 months into this relationship and I'm married and pregnant and am I his taxi cab,
oh my God.
whatever. And I'm like, oh, geez. First of
That'd
all,
be such a terrible thing to have to
you
feel
good?
like you have to
You know?
ask.
I'm like,
Yes.
girl, you need to call in. I honestly think if it wouldn't be an issue with our licensure, okay?
To have people call in.
Yes, would be so much fun. It would be
I
like
feel like we
amazing.
could do that. There's a psychologist that I follow that takes calls.
Okay, so we could Frasier it, but we would have to have real good guardrails on this sucker because we can't do therapy on the pod where this is strictly entertainment and possibly coaching. I don't even know, but like we
Yeah.
cannot do therapy.
No. Well, and we don't do part of our job is relationship and couples therapy, so we probably wouldn't want to combine that with this.
No,
So,
no. Stay tuned. We might find a way professionally to do some of the things, but we
but I
probably
would
won't
want
do a
people
Frasier.
more. I wouldn't want people to call in for like advice about that because that's like a different thing than what we're doing. I'd want them to call in and be like, "Hey, is my roommate a potential serial killer?" Or like,
That could be fun.
"Do
Like a
they have
hometown.
psychopathy components?" And like they could explain it to us.
Yeah, or like a hometown case situation. Like my friend's roommate's daughter
Yeah.
was dating this guy who blah blah blah. That we could do something with that for sure.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, we'll noodle. We'll noodle people. Tell us what you want.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay, our case today. I promised a couple weeks ago we were going to do the Gilgo Beach murders. That's what we're doing.
Yes.
We've had several messages from you all, including this afternoon. I got one about a particular person involved in this story
Mm.
saying you have to be sure to cover this because it takes it to another level. So I did. And I'm going to give
Perfect.
her a shout out when we get there. So when we brought this up, Rex Heuermann, Heuermann, I don't know. When we brought this up a couple weeks ago and we were talking about sentencing,
Mm-hmm.
we told that part of the story and I said, we'll come back to the case. This is a big case. So we're going to go through the case today and give an update on he did have his court date and then there's a pending court date where he will likely speak. So we're going to get into all of that.
Okay.
Okay. I want to set the scene for you first.
Okay.
Okay. So it's been a long day. Close your eyes if you need to, but don't you dare fall asleep.
Okay.
Okay. Ocean Parkway, Long Island,
Mm-hmm.
December of 2020. Oh, sorry,
Mhm.
2010. December of 2010.
Okay.
A state trooper and his search dog are pushing through scrub brush and salt grass along a desolate stretch of road that separates two worlds: the summer beach traffic of the South Shore on one side and marshland that goes pretty much nowhere on the other.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for a missing woman named Shannon Gilbert, and they can't find her. What they find instead are 4 women bound in burlap, left in the brush like something's just been discarded.
Mm-hmm.
Women who'd been missing for years and years. Women whose families have been told in ways both explicit and implicit, so directly and indirectly,
Mm-hmm.
that missing women like them don't get investigations. They get files.
Mm.
Over the following year, investigators would find 11 sets of remains along the stretch of parkway that they searched.
Okay.
11 women.
Hmm.
Spans of remains that stretch back to the early 90s. A killer who'd been operating undetected for possibly 3 decades, while also simultaneously building a career, marriage, and suburban life in Massapequa Park. 5 days ago, on April 8th, and this is what we alluded to,
Mm-hmm.
a 62-year-old architect named Rex Heuermann stood in a Suffolk County courtroom and said yes, one victim at a time, to killing 8 of those women, calmly, without tears, no tremor in his voice, and he did not look at the families behind him who were in court. But here is what we also want to talk about today. Rex Heuermann is not the only person with a story in the case.
Mm-hmm.
There was a police chief, Jimmy Burke, who had access to the evidence that might have found him years earlier, and who instead buried the investigation to protect himself. He went to federal prison for his own crimes while these families were waiting for their loved ones to be found.
Mm.
Jimmy Burke, was arrested again in 2023. The same summer, Heuermann was finally caught for soliciting sex in a public park.
Dang.
So these 2 men, their decisions shaped this whole story. One of them killed 8 women. The other let him keep going.
Hmm.
So as you can imagine, I got a lot to say about this,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the listener who brought this to our attention is Creative Mama on Instagram. She's been an OG follower.
Nice.
And I'm really hoping that you're going to Vegas. Let us know if you're going to Vegas because we'd love to see you. But she's the one who told me to make sure that I get in some information about this police chief because that's wild.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're thinking about just the data that I gave you,
Mm-hmm.
right? What comes to mind first? What do you think when you hear, okay, this officer's looking for a missing person and finds 4 women? What comes up for you when you think about that?
Oh shit.
Oh shit. If you're living in that community,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Like
You know,
literally, oh shit.
oh shit. And you would
Mm-hmm.
be thinking, I would be thinking, okay, well, how many are there?
Mm-hmm.
Is this all? Are there more? And then clearly they
Mm-hmm.
went on and found more,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I want to talk through the names of the women because they knew about 8 of them, and then he admitted to another one. So, the first, and this goes in chronological order. The first was actually it doesn't go in. Well, the disappearances are in chronological order. When they were found is a little bit different because a couple of them were found later than the others.
Yeah.
So Sandra Costilla was 28 years old when
Mm-hmm.
she went missing. She was an immigrant from Trinidad and Tobago, killed November 1993, and she's the earliest known victim. Her
Mm-hmm.
body was discovered by hunters in a wooded area.
Mm-hmm.
31 years passed before Rex Heuermann was charged for her murder. And so she was found, but it was before they could do the things that they could do later to
Yeah.
connect all of these things, right?
Yeah.
Karen Vergata We don't know how old she was when she disappeared, but she disappeared in 1996. Her skull was found 15 years later near Tobay Beach.
Mhm.
Heuermann was never charged with her death. He admitted to it later as a part of the plea. And
Okay.
her family never knew a name of
Mhm.
who killed their daughter, their family member.
Mhm.
Maureen Brainerd Barnes was 25, mother of two from Norwich, Connecticut. She
Mhm.
was a seasonal telemarketer and then returned to sex work after receiving an eviction notice. She disappeared in July of 2007 and she was found in December of 2010. And
Mm.
she was found restrained with leather belts. So they found her body restrained.
Mm.
Melissa Bartholomew, Melissa Bartholomew, 24 years old when she went missing, young woman from New York. She was lured via a burner phone with a promise of money.
Mhm.
And she's part of the Gilgo Four that were found in December of 2010.
Mm.
She was part of those four. Megan Waterman, 22, disappeared in June of 2010. She was a mother. Her roommate remembered the Chevrolet Avalanche, a detail that would survive a decade and help identify Heuermann. So she remembered a detail that helped them
Hmm.
find him. Amber Costello, 27, living in West Babylon. Her roommate's description of the client, his truck, his build, sat in a file for over a decade before investigators connected it.
Mm.
And that's frustrating when you have
Mhm.
someone here who is trying to be helpful and it just gets buried kind of or stuck. That's
Mhm.
unfortunate. Jessica Taylor, 20 years old when she went missing, living in Manhattan when she disappeared in 2003. Her remains were found 45 miles east of Gilgo Beach in Manorville. Her mother, Elizabeth, was in the courtroom on April 8th.
Mhm.
And then Valerie Mack, unknown age when she disappeared, remained unidentified for a decade. Her identity wasn't confirmed until 2020. Her son was in court through his attorney demanding that the full facts come out. So
Mm.
her son was representing her. So these women were not random. So
Right.
this particular serial killer used a tactic that we know is super common. He
Mhm.
went after women who he thought would not be missed.
Mm.
And the thing that's so frustrating about the system, I think we're seeing improvements. Some of that's with DNA processing and stuff.
Mhm.
But it is true that the squeaky wheel gets the oil. I mean, we look at a Nancy Guthrie, which that's devastating, what happened to Nancy Guthrie,
Mhm.
all over the news. But if it's someone who disappeared or they don't have immediate family members looking for them and they're destitute and they're desperate, those are easier people to prey on
Yeah.
than other folks in our community, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a book, Lost Girls, written by Robert Kolker. And
Okay.
this is like the book about this case. So if you're really fascinated by this case and you want to know more, and we're not going to get into some of the grotesque details as per usual, because if you're listening to this on the way to work, I know some of y'all are into that. That's totally fine. We're not going to do
Mhm.
that. If you want to really go in and really read all the details, there's this book, Lost Girls. He wrote about how sex workers were chosen because he really thought he would maybe get away with all of these murders. And he did for a super long time,
Mhm.
20 years. So it's so frustrating, but also it's logical for a serial killer to go after this population, unfortunately.
Mhm. Mhm.
So now when we see victim selection in cases like this, deliberately targeting women,
Mhm.
what are we looking at psychologically? Is it opportunistic only, or is there maybe something more going on that makes
Mhm.
them target these particular women, do you think, without knowing his background yet?
Yeah, I think all of the above.
Hmm.
I think there's opportunity there. I mean, it's, like in a, somewhat marginalized population. And I think, yeah, the opportunity might be a little bit quote unquote easier. I don't love that, how to phrase that, but maybe easier. And then also like they might not be looked for as much,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Well, and then you also have to look at maybe some targeting depending on the psychology of the perpetrator too. So yes,
Yeah.
opportunistic, yes, they won't be
Yeah.
found, but also what do they represent?
Oh,
If you,
100%. Yeah.
right?
Well, and you get into like typology and all that, like, if they all look similar or like are, have similar demeanors or whatever, might not to like make it, cliche to television, but that's television follows what's happening, media follows life. And so that's actually what happens sometimes is they find a group of people who remind them of something in their world.
Yes. And
Mhm.
we're like budget profilers in a funny way. So we
Mhm.
are not BAU, like Criminal Minds, good for them, man. They are like
Mhm.
so good at what they do and they know so much more than we do. But
In
we
another
do this.
life, I would have worked for the BAU.
So Nat and I have laughed about this, okay, because both of us have looked at the posting for CBI and FBI.
Mhm.
And then we aged out. I aged out
We
a
are
couple
both
years
aged out.
ago. You just
Yeah.
aged out. But also, we love our families. That kind of thing would take us from our families and stuff. But there is a part of our job that is really similar to that, just in the sense that honestly, it's even more hands-on because not
Mhm.
only are we putting together a picture of the where, what, why, who
Mhm.
after they've caught someone, but then it's okay,
Mhm.
so like, are they going to do this again? And if there's a chance to keep this from happening again, that's our puzzle.
Mhm.
And then we are constantly looking for motivators. What are the drivers? What made this happen? And so our
Mhm.
jobs are fascinating for that reason. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I'm not upset we don't work with serial. Like, I'm not upset that we're not in prison working with serial killers, though, at this point.
Right.
I think that
Right.
would have been interesting earlier in my career. Right now, I don't know. I really like being a part of moving the ball forward for our communities. I
Mhm.
value that so much, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about Rex. And I'm
Okay.
just going to call him Rex because his last name's weird and it's easier. So
Okay.
Rex was an architectural consultant.
Okay.
He had an office near the Empire State Building. He was known to colleagues as a veteran expert in New York City building code. So he was
Hmm.
really technical and knew a lot of things about architecture and code in buildings. He was married for 27 years. He had two children. He would commute wearing a suit, to work. He had a suburban house in Massapequa Park. He was also the man whose neighbors warned their children to avoid his house on Halloween, who was seen glowering at passerbys, swinging an axe in his front yard.
Wow.
He drove a first generation Chevrolet Avalanche, a distinctive truck rarely purchased that would eventually help investigators find him. So this is weird. This is a split picture. So he's not just this hidden monster that nobody could see, like BTK, like going to
Right.
church and doing all the things. There was a screw loose in this guy. There
Right.
was something people were picking up on, but then the system didn't step in. They didn't
Hmm.
assemble to rally to find this guy, but also he was able to maintain a marriage, a career, have children,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
What do you think about that? Isn't that kind of a weird presentation?
Um,
I feel like we usually see more one or the other. Like has that
yes.
family and I know whatever.
Yeah,
Or they
it is
freaked out the
different.
neighbors. It's not usually both.
Yeah, no, it is different. It is different in that way. I was gonna say that. Like we usually see some of both of this, but like yeah, you don't often see both.
In one human. It's a little
Yeah,
bit
no.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not I mean he's not a unicorn, okay? Like he's not special, but it is a little bit different than what I would expect,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not that special, Rex. Sorry. Not sorry. Okay, so when we get into his marriage, which is what I was maybe the most curious about, right? His wife, Asa Ellerup, was in the last row of the courtroom on April 8th, holding hands with their daughter, Victoria. After the plea, she told reporters, "My thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families." She has maintained and still maintains she did not see this coming, that she did not know the man she was married to for nearly 3 decades was capable of this. Her attorney said no one can envision ever in their life standing here in a courthouse on a line surrounded by media, having their ex-husband accused of 7, potentially 8 homicides. It's unimaginable. It's kind of interesting.
You know what this reminds me of a little bit? The what is it? BTK killer.
Oh yeah, I just said BTK, but BTK was like church and nice, and everybody was shocked.
We'll be right back.
If you work with court-ordered clients, you already know the system can be overwhelming. Documentation, coordination, compliance tracking, billing, on top of actually doing the therapy. That's why we want to tell you about Reliatrax, a one-stop platform built specifically for therapists working in the court-ordered space and voluntary treatment. Reliatrax helps you stay connected with probation and referral sources so everyone's on the same page and your clients get the best care possible without the endless emails, calls, and paperwork. And here's the exciting part. Reliatrax now offers Aura, their new AI assistant. Aura helps streamline documentation, keeps you organized, and supports your workflow so you can spend less time clicking boxes and more time doing clinical work. Reliatrax also supports insurance billing, including Medicaid, making it easier to serve both court-ordered and voluntary clients all in one system. No juggling platforms and no workarounds. And the other amazing thing is you have an actual team of people who can support you, not some automated system. If you're looking for a smarter, more efficient way to manage compliance, communication, and care, Reliatrax was built for this. Check out Reliatrax and see how it can support you, your clients, and the systems you work in without burning you out. You can go to www.reliatrax.com to get started.
Yes. But
With
the fact
BTK.
I just watched the documentary on BTK
Oh, yeah.
last night while I was putting chairs together.
Oh, yeah. He weirds me out, too, to no end. But yes.
Super weird, but
So weird.
similar, like family-ish in the sense that like so unexpected by everyone. And they kind of have, I just looked both of them up, like in terms of what they look like. They don't look similar, but they do enough.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You know
It's
what I
also
mean?
weird because so BTK would never be swinging an axe in the front yard
No.
or have kids not come to
You're
his
right.
house. He was more of a community guy, but you're right that I think both of them were normal passing enough,
Yes.
right?
But also weird enough.
Weird enough for sure.
Both of them were a little weird enough. Like
Little
BTK
weird.
also, some people picked up on his weirdness and they were like, do not go to their house.
100%. And they have a similar weirdness when it comes to how they view women and their crimes, which is just interesting. Paraphilias, they have some similarities.
Okay,
So,
sorry. I was like, I swear, some of the similarities, mainly just because I watched the BTK thing last night.
it's also weird, and we'll do BTK someday too, but it's weird to me a little bit that this is so shocking to her. So remember when we did Fox Hollow Farms and the wife was like, I don't know, but also the kid ran into the house with a skull one time. This feels a little more that-ish than BTK was like, I mean, he was putting in work to be normal. There were similarities, but I wonder what was going on with this wife because he was weird enough in public that something was going on at home. You're not swinging an axe in your front yard and then the perfect citizen at home. Like there was something going on for sure.
Right.
But it is in her best interest to not see that now. She also could have been the victim of horrific abuse, which we've seen that before too. So, and I don't know anything about that, but I think that's important.
Yeah, 100%.
It takes so much energy, I think, to keep up this kind of lie for most people,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe not psychopaths. Why? It is very hard for me as I like to think of myself as fairly normal. I'm a little bit basic even, you know. This feels like a lot of work. So much
Mm.
work to be a killer, keep it a secret. Like even when I watch Dexter.
But I think that's part of it though. Like think about addicts.
Mm-hmm.
They like part of the addiction is how to do it.
Is the like the
It's how to get the drug.
uh-huh.
It's like, you know, like when we used to work in drug court, people
Mm-hmm.
would talk all the time, especially when they were broke. They would say like part of it is like the panhandling, part of it is like the stealing, and then you get the
Mm,
money and then you go to the dealer. Like it's like the whole process. And you know,
that's interesting. You're right.
addicts call people who aren't addicts normies.
Mm,
And so they would say, like, yeah, normies don't get this because, like,
mm,
this sounds stressful to any other human, but, like, to them, it's part of the game. It's
interesting.
part of the addiction. And so I would guess for serial killers, I had so many questions last night about serial killers anyway.
Yeah.
Um, but what I think is like for serial killers, it's an addiction,
Mm,
right? They need to scratch this thing in their brain. And so it's part of the addiction is literally the process of it.
that's so true. I think that's so true. Like what a great point because this looks like a lot of work to me, but you're
Mhm.
right. Every part of this is fun to the right human.
It's the same thing you mentioned tonight in group, right? Right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, why try to get away with using Wizenators or,
Oh my God. Yeah.
you know, tricking the system? Part of it is the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's easier to follow the rules,
So much easier.
but there's a little bit of like, can I get away with it? Right? Like,
Mm,
and that's for normal people, like I shouldn't say normal people. That's for like individuals who aren't as severe as this, obviously, but they're just like caught up in the system,
mm.
right?
And it's a little bit of like a
There's a game, there's a high.
uh-huh. Yeah. Well, and we know, and we're going to get into psychopathy, but we know about that dopamine deficit. I've talked about it on here.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, all of the lying parts, the racing home, the keeping secrets, all of that does light the brain up in an
Hmm.
interesting
Hmm.
way.
Hmm.
Yeah, you're right. Well, let's talk about the cold case problem.
Okay.
So, the dude who made this worse, Jimmy Burke,
Hmm.
he made it worse in a very in a very specific way. Okay? So the Suffolk County Police Department was criticized for treating the disappearance of these women, these women who were engaged in sex work, as
Hmm.
low priority cases. So families have come forward and said, we were dismissed. Leads went cold because nobody followed up with them. Nobody assembled a task force. They weren't really looking even for these women.
Hmm.
But it wasn't just neglect. What they
Hmm.
found out was there was a specific person in the center of this.
Hmm.
And his story is actually one of the most important parts of this whole Gilgo Beach saga
Hmm.
because he turned out to have his own secrets that look super weirdly relevant to what was going on with Rex.
Hmm.
So in January of 2012, 9 months after a 10th body was found near Gilgo Beach, just weeks after Shannon Gilbert's remains were finally located, Suffolk County Executive Steve Bellone, I think is how I say that, I'm sorry, sir, appointed a sergeant named James Burke as chief of the Suffolk County Police Department. So in 2012, they get a new chief.
Okay.
Burke was already known in the department. A 1995 internal probe had found he had a relationship with a woman engaged in prostitution and drug dealing and had committed sex acts in police vehicles while on duty and in uniform.
Dang.
That file existed when Burke was appointed, and
Okay.
he was appointed anyway. So, one of the first things that Burke did as chief was remove the detectives who'd been overseeing the investigation and take it in a different direction.
Okay.
He took it away from the FBI. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Away from.
Mm-hmm.
So they had the FBI involved a bit. Former detective Rob Trotta, who was assigned to the FBI Violent Crimes Task Force at the time, described it very plainly. The FBI was offering to help. They were offering people expertise, funding, but he didn't want the FBI there in any way. So the world's leading law enforcement agency, particularly in cases like this with the forensic capability and experience, is exactly why this was sidelined, because Burke blocked the FBI. And you and I have said so many times, bring in the FBI. Like all of these cases that go on way too long, they don't bring in the FBI. The FBI can do things nobody else can do, right? So let's talk about why Burke blocked the FBI.
Okay.
He was protecting himself because, oh, this is just so like almost cliche. In 2012, a man named Christopher Lobb broke into Burke's unlocked police vehicle and stole a duffel bag. The bag, hold on to your butt now. This is a lot. The bag contained a gun, ammunition, a box of cigars, and a bag full of sex toys and pornography.
Wow.
When Loeb was taken into custody, Burke, as you can imagine, personally participated in beating the handcuffed suspect.
Dang.
Then he and his allies, including the DA, Thomas Spoda, orchestrated a years-long cover-up to bury the assault.
Dang.
Burke couldn't have the FBI in Suffolk County. And so because he was keeping them away due to this thing that he went through and did, the Gilgo Beach investigation was kind of the collateral damage of his bullshit. Right? So, what do you think of that? What is he doing with all this crap in his duffel bag? His cop duffel bag.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
It's so weird. It's weird in the same way that Rex is a little bit weird. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yep. So the fallout was super, super intense because if you're a cop and you have power, when you abuse it in this way, it's gonna bite you eventually. I hope it does, to be frank. The fallout's enormous. So in 2015, Burke resigned just before federal prosecutors charged him.
Of course he did.
Right. In 2016, he pled guilty to depriving a person of civil rights and conspiracy to commit obstruction of justice. He served 46 months in federal prison. So while he's in prison, the case is not solved, right? Like they're finding bodies, they're working on the case, but like he literally goes to prison and Rex is still hanging out. Okay. So then once they kind of figure out what's going on with the corruption, okay, Christopher McPartland and the district attorney, Thomas Spoda, who we talked about, all ended up in prison because there was so much corruption. Witness tampering, obstruction, conspiracy related to all this same cover up. And then, and you gotta love this, is like such a politician move. The executive of Suffolk County says, Jim Burke, someone I entrusted with great responsibility, lied to my face for nearly 3 years and orchestrated a cover up to perpetuate that lie. It's like, I regret that appointment, even though we had a file on this dude. So where's the accountability even from the executive?
Right.
I mean, the whole thing, it's just a mess from the top down.
Right.
So here's where things get interesting between Rex and Burke and how these cases are connected in a weird way. Okay.
Okay.
Burke was released from federal prison in 2018. In August of 2023, the same summer that Rex was finally arrested for the murders of all those women,
Mm-hmm.
Burke was arrested again, this time at a Long Island park where he allegedly exposed himself to an undercover ranger and solicited sex.
Mm.
He invoked his status as a former law enforcement official to try to avoid the arrest, and the ranger didn't recognize him.
Dang.
So Burke is not the killer in this case, right?
Mm.
What does it tell us that the person most positioned to find Rex was a man with this particular set of interests and this particular issue with accountability? I think, okay, you know how we talk about in clinical supervision,
That's crazy.
there's parallel process.
Yes.
This is like a
Yes.
very weird, twisty
Yes.
version of parallel process,
Yes. That's a great way to explain it.
right? So parallel process in a lot of ways means if Nat was my intern years and years ago, right? I have some
Mhm.
quirks. We're not the same human, but you picked up on some of my quirks because I was training you, just like I modeled some of the quirks of my supervisors, still do
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
these years later. And you've had other supervisors and you've supervised people and they'll pick up on some of your quirks. So it's just a funny thing in life where people are pretty contagious and it's just kind of how it
Mhm.
works. It makes total sense to me that Burke didn't take this
Mhm.
case seriously because he had maybe some similar ideas about the value of women, sex, some of that stuff. So he was not concerned with solving this case. He just was not
Mhm.
worried about it. And he also didn't want the FBI there because he'd been on some nonsense and he knew that they would find out. And they did because that's what they
Mhm.
do.
Mhm.
Okay, so how Rex finally got caught, was the roommate, Amber Costello's roommate,
Mhm.
more than a decade after Amber disappeared, found a description. The investigators found a description of a large male client, right? Because we're talking about sex work, who had a first generation Chevy Avalanche. So now they have a physical profile of a human and a vehicle. Investigators got into the cellular data. And again, right, this is years later, so they can kind of dig in there a little bit. They found a pattern. The phone pings placed a device in Massapequa Park and in Midtown Manhattan.
Mhm.
A person who lived in one place and worked in the other.
Mhm.
And then in April of 2022, all of that came together as Rex. It all started matching
Mm.
his patterns with his phone,
Okay.
was matching all of these things that they were looking at the data for.
Okay.
Then they really needed his DNA, so they put surveillance on him in Manhattan. So when he was in a Manhattan Midtown building, he ate some pizza and he put the box in a sidewalk garbage can.
Mhm.
The team went in and extracted DNA from the leftover crust and sent it to the crime lab. It matched a male hair found on the burlap used to bind one of the Gilgo 4 victims,
Mm.
a hair that had been sitting in an evidence bag for over a decade, is
Mhm.
what matched the pizza crust.
Mhm.
That is so frustrating because the DA's office was trying to keep this investigation invisible
Mhm.
all these years, and they probably could have done what was necessary to catch him much sooner.
Mhm.
So then in September of 2025, a judge ruled that the whole genome sequencing, where they look at the DNA and they really connect it and they admitted it into evidence, it connected him then to multiple killings,
Mm.
right? And this was still kind of on the front end. I mean, that technology is new in the last couple of years.
Right.
But the judge said it's relevant and it is viable, and so it is admissible.
Mm-hmm.
right? 5 months before the trial was set to begin, Rex told the attorney he wanted to plead guilty. What do you think the admission of this DNA stuff now? What does this mean for cold cases? And also, even I think as clinicians who know that there can be mistakes in the system, right? What do you think about the fact that we have whole genome sequencing, or we can go into these databases and find relatives
Mm-hmm.
of killers and stuff? Like, what's your take on that?
I love it. I love that we have that now. Not to like go on a different tangent, but like John Bonet's killer, I'm hoping we figure this out.
We have to find it. This
I'm
is like
like,
Kohlberger. You couldn't tell me nothing. I was
Mhm.
miserable until we found out Kohlberger was
Yeah, but
implicated
see,
in
with
that.
Kohlberger, it was like they had a person. With John Bonet, they don't have a person.
But they didn't at first, and it made me
Yeah.
nuts that
Yeah.
somebody could go in and kill four co-eds
Right.
in a house, leave, and they had nothing was making me nuts.
And one person even saw him.
Yes. No, that was making me crazy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this too, right? I mean, John
But yeah,
Bonet,
no,
we gotta get
I love that technology's come a long way with this. I think it's interesting because I think like as time has gone on, obviously like with ring doorbells and just random things, it's so much harder to get away with things now, but people still do, which is like, in my opinion, like wildly insane. Um,
yes.
but it happens, and I think, I love the genome sequencing and the all of that. I love it. I'm so happy that it's a thing, and I'm hoping that they can close a lot of cold cases that just drive us nuts.
So if the government said, hey, we need to take genetic material, DNA, from every member of society so that we have it cataloged and listed so that we can solve anything that comes up like this.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on that?
If they had a catalog?
Yeah, like if they were like, we're going to create a massive database, because right now they're using basically, I don't know if it's 23andMe, but it's like the equivalent.
Yeah.
They are hacking into this stuff, which
Yeah.
is a little controversial legally, right? Because
Yeah.
people go in with the assumption that they're looking for their great grandpa's whatever for a project, and
Right.
then their great uncle twice removed ends up being somehow connected to a murder. Like it's a weird thing that's
Right, right,
happening.
right, right.
I think
I
a
don't
lot
hate
of
it though, I don't
well,
hate
I
it.
think a lot of people agree with you. I agree with you that I think the sequencing is great for finding
Mhm.
these people and shutting down this whole just the targeting of vulnerable people and all those kinds of things. This makes that harder. But I still think we as a society, not wrongly, are protective of our information. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering, like, how far does this go? Someday, do we have to, have a big database of everybody's DNA? Or are we already in a place where we're pretty close to
Well,
that? Then you throw in AI and like,
yeah, I don't know if we'll ever get, I mean, I shouldn't say ever. I don't know if we'll get there because it has to be like either you're caught for doing something or voluntary,
well, or
kind of.
connected to someone else who did it.
Right.
Because that's the tricky thing.
That's
Like,
true.
if your cousin, Susie, whoever, right,
Yeah.
sets up a 23andMe for a project or because they're curious, then your
Mhm.
stuff's out there whether you chose that or not. And I've
Right.
told, my mom found a new sister. Like it's weird. Like there's a lot of
Oh,
stuff
I
in
didn't
there,
know that.
right?
That's crazy. Have you shared that?
Have I not shared this?
No.
Okay, 2-second DNA tangent. I'll tell you the whole story another day. But my southern family is a little
Mhm.
bit bananas, okay? And I love them, okay? And they are who they are. My
Mhm.
grandfather grew up really, really poor in Mississippi, super, super poor, like not indoor plumbing, nothing. I mean, just really, really, really poor.
Mhm.
And they had big family, bunch of people. And
Mhm.
so there was this whole thing that happened, and we can only talk about it now. because my grandmother passed away. But before my grandmother passed away, the whole family knew, but we were terrified for her to know because basically what happened is my grandfather left. He fell in love with my grandmother. He went to Korea for the war and came back to finish high school in Mississippi and met my grandma, and he just loved her. He just loved her to pieces, but then he took off and went to Chicago and really left her. And then he started kind of writing her letters. And then he swung down and married her in a fever and took her to Chicago from the South.
Wow.
So, there was not a ton of time between those two things, like when he left and then when he came back to get her.
Yeah.
Well, what we found out, one of my mom's cousins did some genetic testing, and my mom is has cancer, but is doing really well. And so the cousin was researching genetic stuff to let the family know, because I think she had cancer, or her mom, someone in her family had cancer, and they were trying to make connections, like who would be at risk for this certain kind of cancer. And it wasn't my mom's kind, it was a different kind. So in the process of doing that, they matched I think it was either 23andMe or what's the other one? Ancestry. Might have been on Ancestry. All of a sudden, my mom's cousin realizes she's related to this person who we don't know. And it's a close connection. Close connection. Okay. So my uncle gets a call and they decide to reach out. And so, not my uncle, I think it was the cousin that reached out. My mom was mad at first, but now you're going to die when you hear about her, because it's why. I'll show you a picture later. She looks a fair bit like my mom. It's just crazy.
Oh my gosh.
So my grandfather got another woman pregnant in Chicago, and it has the last name on the birth certificate, but not his whole name, but has the last name on the birth certificate.
Oh my gosh.
The baby was placed for adoption with a family. And the family, I think, was an Italian family. So this woman who is 74 or 5 at the time, she was, I think, 70 when we found her, didn't know that she was adopted until she was contacted by the cousin. She didn't know. So she looked different from her family, but she didn't think much of it, and she just didn't understand. Okay.
That's wild.
So I believe, and I may get the dates wrong, but there's only like a 3-month difference between her and my oldest uncle. So he got this other woman pregnant, and then pretty quickly went and picked my grandma up from Mississippi, married her, and then she got pregnant with my uncle. So there were 2 babies born pretty close together. So technically she was the oldest kid. So when we got connected to her, she's a lovely person. Her name is Georgia. She's lovely. She's a social worker, and she looks like my mama.
Aww.
Looks a bit like my mom. I'll show you a picture of her.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about DNA, this is how crazy it can get, though, pretty quick. You're really messing with people. You know? Okay, I'm going to find her. Oh my gosh, you're going to die when you see.
That's wild.
I just think she's so lovely.
Send it in a text.
Okay, I will. I'm going to send this to you. It's just wild. Because you know my mama, you know? So Tina's a legend. And they actually met. They met in New Mexico. They met up. My dad and my mom drove down, and they met up. And she's really just a lovely person. Social worker, therapist for years and years.
She looks lovely.
She's a lovely person. And I always say Tina is a therapist without a license. So
yeah,
it's funny how things sometimes run in families. But I think that there are so many families with complicated stuff. So if we just start syncing it up this way, there's a part of me that's like, we better not have AI take this over and be hallucinating. Like, we need to be real sure what we're doing, because
Mhm.
I think that our society is kind of primed. If there's DNA evidence, like, game over, you know?
Right.
So real quick, 2 seconds on psychopathy.
Mm-hmm.
When we are talking about your 1%er psychopaths, they tend to have a bit of this, have a job, maybe have a wife, maybe have kids. He's not overly charming, but he was able to sort of pull together a life. He wasn't, hiding out in the woods killing people. He had some
No.
semblance of a life.
Yeah, he
Right.
like you said, he's like normal enough.
Normal enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing that's interesting about this is I don't
He
know.
looks like he's a big dude.
I think he's real big. Yes.
I wonder how tall he is. Anyway, continue.
No, I think he's a really big guy.
So he's
So
6'4". There we go.
yeah, no, he looks ginormous.
Yeah.
When you look at the social deviance, right, on factor 2,
Mm-hmm.
my understanding of him is he did not have a super extensive criminal history,
Mm-hmm.
right? He had some deviant, maybe sexual behavior, some of that kind of stuff, but he had a normal enough world.
Yeah.
Normal enough that he evaded suspicion
Yeah.
to the extent that he would have been picked up sooner, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about primary psychopathy, which I think there's definitely some features here. This is really where the brain is different.
Mm-hmm.
And you see this in his behaviors, maintaining 2 lives, doing all this stuff. This is really not a trauma response per se. This is more that brain difference.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's interesting
Mm-hmm.
because I think BTK also
Mm-hmm.
lines up here. Bundy lines up here. There's a few serial killers that kind of line up
Yeah.
on this, and it's a little bit more rare because sometimes we have a real trauma influence. We talk about, like, was it Night Stalker? Not Night Stalker fits this too.
And Dahmer had some trauma.
Dahmer had trauma and actually has a lower PCLR score than Bundy.
Yeah.
Who's the other one? Is it Ramirez? The one who's real scary looking. So
Ramirez was the football player, right? No, that's Hernandez.
no, no, he's also not a serial killer. Well, he killed some people, but not the same.
Not like, yeah.
Okay, I think it's Ramirez. I think it's the Night Stalker dude.
Oh,
Yes.
Yes.
So scary.
Yeah.
Okay, Richard Ramirez. So
Yeah, he was terrifying.
so scary. So much trauma. So much trauma. So when you think about him, even though his crap was so intense and nuts, he had an awful lot of trauma. This human, we don't see quite as much of that. We see a little bit more of the, I just do this because this is what I do.
Right.
Colleagues didn't see any red flags. He was a functioning professional. He wrote murder checklists.
Jeez.
Absolute confidence in himself. He literally monitored the investigation. He was certain he would not be found. So we have this grandiose self-worth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pathological lying. At his arrest, I didn't do this. And he was tearful. For 1,000 days, he maintained a not guilty plea. Years.
Wow.
And his wife is still like, I can't believe it. He used burner phones. He lured victims with offers of money.
Mm.
In court, he answered strangulation to each victim's name one by one, while families wept behind him and he didn't look over his shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
There was no visible emotional response to any of it.
Mm-hmm.
Flat composure from the time that he changed his plea to guilty. Flat composure, no more tears. So the emotions were real strategic. Right? No remorse or regret. So we've talked about some killers who have come forward before they got caught because they just couldn't take it anymore.
Right.
Not this dude. 30 years of killing people with no disclosure.
Mm.
He
That's
didn't
crazy.
he didn't approach investigators. He didn't, even our 1, 2, 3 girls finally broke. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is a high level of denial and manipulation, right?
Yeah.
The reason that I think it's important to talk about primary and secondary psychopathy is because with primary, there's just less signals. The
Mm-hmm.
criminal record, and we see this, we don't work with a ton of psychopaths, but we do emphasize even in our program that sometimes people are lower risk, quote unquote, because they don't have a big long criminal history, but they can still be a risk to their partners or the community. And we have to be able to kind of suss that out a little bit. But they
Mm-hmm.
can pass background checks, they can get hired, they get married, sometimes they volunteer. BTK, you've got him at the church doing his thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
He had no criminal record whatsoever.
Mm.
Rex Heuermann, which
Crazy.
also means there wasn't much for somebody to treat in him. He just was bent. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So he was arrested for the first time at 59 years old. He'd been killing since he was 29 or 30, at least
Crazy.
that we know of.
That's
Right?
insane.
Uh-huh. So what do you think, Nat, if we had people, and I'm gonna get into, actually, let me share this really quick, and then I want to know your thought for if you run into this kind of behavior, what do you do? One of the scariest things in the world is when psychopathy meets a paraphilia.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when psychopathy meets a sexual sadist,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those are the serial killers that are the scariest, that have a high body count, and that really, really hurt people and just enjoy hurting and killing people,
Mm-hmm.
right? They are neurochemically wired to cause suffering and to appreciate it. And they have no internal architecture to like interrupt it and stop it.
Mm-hmm.
So, what we know about sexual homicides is typically there's a fantasy cycle that precedes every offense.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have a deviant fantasy, it builds over time, it escalates in intensity, there's mounting pressure, and then there's an offense.
Mm-hmm.
They get a temporary reduction in the pressure, and then it starts to build again, right? And this is not different in many ways in terms of the structure in the brain than chasing a first high.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of killers become actually pretty compulsive in their killing. And like you said, there's a ritual or routine that they are also
Chasing.
really connected to,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's a mental rehearsal happening all the time before the killing, after the killing, leading up to the next killing, after that killing. There's a really significant, substantial thought process that's just cooking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, one interesting thing about Rex is he killed from 93 to like 2010-ish, but there were some gaps.
Mm-hmm.
And what they say is that the marriage may have been a protective factor for a couple of years. But 7 years in, the killing resumed because the fantasy cycle rebuilt.
Mm-hmm.
The marriage could no longer contain it or mask it, right?
Mm-hmm.
External constraints can delay the cycle, but not extinguish it. That's what we know about organized sexual homicide in the research.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my question for you is there's a lot of people out there, and we talk about strangulation isn't sexy, and we really try with our groups, men's and women's groups, to say like, what is healthy sexual behavior? What is healthy conflict? How do we manage aggression? It came up even tonight in group, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean to be a man? How do we behave when we're a man? What do women expect from men based on their own backgrounds?
Mm-hmm.
When people start to see markers of primary psychopathy, so a lack of empathy, maybe emotion that turns on and off in a way that really doesn't make sense, or the hairs are standing up on the back of your neck because you have this weird experience with somebody. how can people start to organize that information? Or like you have a friend, you're talking to your friend and she says, well, here's what happened. We had sex for the first time and he blah, 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 blah. And you're like, holy crap. Like you're having a visceral reaction.
Mm-hmm.
We are trained to not make a big deal out of things, particularly as women. We're supposed to like, don't be dramatic, like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then we wonder why women are obsessed with true crime. What would you tell the listeners if they're seeing concerning behaviors, whether it's in their own relationships or people they really care about?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with that? And how do we encourage people to honor what they're feeling
Mm-hmm.
on the inside about somebody who's maybe showing some of these traits? Because they're out there. That's the thing that freaks me out. They
Mm-hmm.
may not even be killing people, but they may be hurting people for fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think people oftentimes ignore their spidey senses, like that gut feeling. And so I think it would be like start with that. If you have a weird feeling that something's off,
Mm-hmm.
go with your gut, and
Like honor the feeling.
yeah, honor the feeling, get the help that you need. If it's someone close to you, like a family member or close friend, I want to say honestly, like talk to them and tell them like, hey, dude, like I see something that's coming up and I'm just curious about it. That's not like a new friend. If it's anyone new in your
You
life,
mean
like
you're
run.
talking about the friend, not the scary human? Or are you talking about telling the scary human?
No, I'm talking about like if I'm related to someone and I'm also close with them who are demonstrating crazy behaviors, I'm probably gonna tell them, dude, you're like, what's up? Like I'm thinking if it's like, I don't know, my brother would never do this. He would never hurt a fly. But like if it's my brother,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, dude, you have some crazy behaviors. Or if he's like started dating someone, obviously he's now married, but if he started dating someone who exhibited
Mhm.
stuff, like I'm gonna say the thing. I'm not, but that's just me. I'm not someone who like holds back on much,
Mhm.
whether they are the scary human or they're with a scary human.
Totally.
I'm gonna say something.
I've shared this story before on the podcast, but not in a long time. I was in a room of people one time, and Garrett and I were just talking about this in the context of the book. One of my friends made a joke. If you ever see my husband with a black eye, it means I'm dead. That's a joke.
So with a
Black eye, it means I'm dead.
black eye.
Black eye.
I thought you said something else.
No, if you ever see my husband with a black eye, it means I'm dead.
Got it.
Okay. That's a weird thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing funny about that whatsoever. Okay. Everybody didn't know what to do. We're all looking at each other like, because even when we work in this field, we don't expect to see it show up quite
Mhm.
like that. And this person's not a serial killer, okay? But it was just
Right.
it was a weird thing to say, and you have to kind of ask, and I did ultimately ask. But I think we kind of have to stay ready to be immediate when things come up, and obviously in our family, I don't suggest that you confront a friend's partner ever because we just don't know, particularly if you're a woman, we don't know what that's going to do to you. There
Mhm.
are friends who've been killed for standing up to a partner who's dangerous or abusive, but you can create a really safe place for your friend. And you can, of course, advocate for your friend when you're all together if something bad's going down. But I think we have to say the thing. And it's hard. It's hard to do that. But we have to be willing to not just be like, oh, that's so weird, but actually say, like, hey, I wonder if he could hurt you.
Right.
Also, if a woman, and tell me if you agree with this, because maybe I'm just too dramatic, but I don't think so. If somebody pushes a sexual boundary,
Mm-hmm.
really pushes a boundary, I mean, how fast do you think that's a deal breaker? Because for me, it's a one and done. I mean,
Right.
if you push a boundary and you don't listen, that's
Mhm.
it. Like call it a day.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know any good men who would push a boundary when they know it's a boundary. So like
Mm-hmm.
they might push the envelope a little bit, but if they heard, they'd be really actually the good men that I know are
Mm-hmm.
very upset if they put a woman in a bad spot
Right.
or hurt them physically or anything. That is that's a non-starter for a good man. It really
Right.
is.
Right.
How many chances do you get? Because when I counsel people, I hear some nonsense and I have to like mind my face the best I can and be like, okay, what are we thinking? Why are we? And then sometimes I'm like, oh my God, like, no,
Mm-hmm.
it depends on the day. I try to be as disciplined as I can be. But how many times, Nat, do you give somebody a chance to be a total idiot with you or hurt you before you're done, if you can get out in the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, if it, that's a hard question. If it's like someone who I've had in my life for a long time and something comes up and they like unintentionally cause like emotional pain, we're gonna have a conversation. But if it's
Of
like
course.
someone new in my life, bye.
Well, because I think this gets pushed. I think there's two times, maybe three, that this gets pushed in relationships. In the very beginning, right? And we have hookup culture. So I think there's a bit of pushing of boundaries that happens really, really fast for some couples.
Hmm.
And I think women kind of chalk it up to figuring each other out and sometimes ignore things that are not good.
Yeah.
Also, after people get married, I hear this all the time that a lot
Hmm.
of times for women, things shift when they get married. And there's lots of reasons for that. The other one would be sometimes after babies. So we know that some people who struggle with abusive behaviors really struggle when their partner has a baby because there's some jealousy and some like they're annoyed, they may not bond as well with the kids, whatever. So sometimes stuff can come up then too where it's like this is my time. This is
Hmm.
about me. You've had this kid on you all day but you won't have sex with me. Like we can see a lot of pressure happen then too.
Hmm.
I agree with you. If you're in a long-term relationship with someone, if you have kids with them, it's going to be a lot harder to
Hmm.
be done if somebody's pushing. But what would you say to our besties on Tinder? Like,
Oh yeah,
how?
run.
What do you run like you're
Yeah,
on
run.
fire,
Yeah.
right?
And I mean, here's the other thing. Like if it's like I was thinking more of like friendships, because I have, I have my history of long lasting friendships. So when I said that, it wasn't if you're in a relationship and someone is continuing to push your boundaries, you also do the best that you can to get out.
Well, for women, we're not as likely to run into a psychopathic friend. We might run into a friend with a personality disorder, but
Hmm.
statistically, I would say where we're going to see particularly like a Rex
Hmm.
constellation of lack of empathy and sexual boundary pushing.
Hmm.
It's going to come out in dating in a relationship. And some
Hmm.
of this probably applies to LGBTQ relationships too, but we don't have as much research. We barely have research on female offenders.
Mm.
But when I've seen this happen, it's been dating relationships typically when they can pivot,
Hmm.
but they question themselves. That's what I find in my office is a lot of questioning. And even in high school, talking
Hmm.
to our high school kids about this because oh my gosh, there's some things. And with pornography, like I think sometimes boys see things and they get exposed and then they keep up in the ante and then they're trying to act out and the only thing they know is the thing that they've seen. And so I think we see some of that too.
Hmm.
But I mean, one and done, don't you think?
Oh yeah, that
'Cause we're
bye.
not navigating this. If you say no or you don't want to do something, that's a no, good buddy,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Why do you think people sometimes second guess that and hang in there? On the very front end of a relationship. I understand when you're in a relationship,
Hmm.
particularly when you start building a life and you have kids, it gets way more complicated. But
Hmm.
why do you think people hang on sometimes in the
Trauma.
beginning? Trauma.
Trauma, codependence,
Mm-hmm.
just wanting to have someone,
Mm.
loneliness, like there's a lot of factors why people, I mean, here's the thing, like, unfortunately, I don't know if I should say this or not, but unfortunately, we'll always have a job
I know.
because of relational, um, hardship, and like relational need and loneliness. And you add that in with mental health and, substance abuse and addiction, and it's, like off to the races. No one wants to be lonely. And so, regardless of your level of emotional health, you'll find someone who feels maybe equivalent to you, and it just adds to the chaos, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So so yeah, I think that's why people stick it out. Like people just don't want to be alone. They don't want to feel lonely.
I think
And
you're right
it's
about that.
truly like a discomfort with themselves.
Well, and then I think a highly manipulative person will say something like, well, you just don't have as much experience, or other people haven't had an
Yeah.
issue with this,
Yeah.
or, you get
100%.
coerced.
100%. But
Ugh.
that's a red flag, like if someone tells you something and you feel like this weird pressure to stick it out or to keep giving it a try,
Mm,
that's a red flag,
mm, absolutely.
you know? No one's going to convince me to stay in a friendship or a relationship
Mm-mm.
unless I know that it's a safe human.
Yes.
But you can't
Yeah,
convince me. You know what I mean?
I do. I do. So when we talk about the legal picture, and this was how we stumbled onto this case in the first place, was him changing his plea. So 1,000 days after his arrest on April 8th, he pled guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murder and 4 counts of second-degree murder. He admitted to the uncharged murder of Karen Bergata. In exchange, prosecutors dismissed the double murder charges and will recommend 3 consecutive life sentences plus 4 sentences of 25 years to life. No possibility of parole, and sentencing is set for June 17th. So obviously people are like, hey man, like why the change?
Mm-hmm.
Ask yourself why the change, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what his attorney said is there came a point in the defense where Rex said, I want to plead guilty, because there were 2 rulings along the way that hurt their chance for success. One was the genome sequencing.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the consolidation of all 7 charges into one single trial. He was unlikely to be able to overcome those 2 barriers. So I think he was like, whatever, man. Like, I'll just plead guilty, right?
Mm-hmm.
He is likely to speak at sentencing. The other thing that's interesting is the plea protects against the possibility of something happening where he would get off or something crazy would happen. So now the outcome is certain. And there's a cooperation between the FBI's BAU, Behavioral Analysis Unit, where they may actually offer psychological satisfactions for someone who's spent 3 decades believing he understood something the investigators did not.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is he basically agreed to being done with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about that is helpful to the victims and the families in the case, that if he fought it, it's pretty frustrating, right? To think that he would just deny, put them through the trial, everything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, for him, once he knew the conviction was pretty much certain, he's like, okay, uncle, like, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the attorney said, and this is interesting, he hopes, in quotes, that his client did this because he was sorry on some level. Hopes.
Mm.
So the BAU agreement is part of the plea deal.
Mm-hmm.
And what it means is that Rex, is going to provide information about his methodology, victim selection, and his fantasy process,
Mm-hmm.
which may help them identify other offenders who are currently operating. It may help them find other victims of other killers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of the agreement, is that he's going to help with that.
Okay.
What would you ask if you were on the BAU? What do you want to know?
About him?
Uh-huh. What would your first question be for Rex? If you wanted to figure out something that would be helpful in other situations, what would you ask?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Mm.
Mm, if he can like spot him from afar.
Yeah. The gait analysis type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
I would want to know, I think about the ruminations. Like,
Yeah.
how much of the day did you spend thinking about either your last kill or your next?
Mm-hmm.
Because I am curious about that. And does it escalate like we see with cravings? I'm sure that it does, but I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what that thought process looks like. And I'd be curious about that.
Mm-hmm.
And if it could or could not be interrupted. And also what
Yeah.
happened in 7 years. What was it about being married that kept him from doing it for 7 years? I'd be curious about that too.
Yeah. I wonder
Right?
if there's just a part of him that really wanted to change.
I don't know. Part of me is like, well, maybe he had a good sex life for 5 seconds and he could keep that at bay a little bit.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. It's not giving remorse,
Mm-mm.
but it might have been that it was hard or he hadn't figured out how to do that and be married
Mm-hmm.
too. I mean, I don't know. But I would want to know. I'm curious about that.
Yeah.
The daughter and ex-wife, who were in the courtroom,
Mm-hmm.
both are kind of like on the fence. Like it's hard to imagine this. And so they've had a hard time saying, yeah, he did this.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So as we shift away from Rex and we think about the victims again, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are women with inherent value.
Mm-hmm.
They have inherent value as a human being. And when we talk about sex work in particular, and I was just watching the Lamar Odom documentary. I highly recommend it. It's
Interesting.
the death and life of Lamar Odom, something like that. It's on Netflix. It's really
That one
interesting.
that one of the Kardashians was married to. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Chloe.
Yeah.
And she nursed him back to health. She had filed for divorce, and then he had his overdose at the Bunny Ranch. And so the people who were calling 911 were the sex workers at the ranch who were with him, which is, you know, anyway, that's a big tragic thing. But
Mm-hmm.
when we're talking about these women who were in desperate positions, I think women in particular can be kind of harsh about
Mm-hmm.
women in sex work. And I think there's a million reasons why women end up in that position. I don't think I'm in a place where, just based on the amount of trauma work I've done, where I can say that's an empowered life choice. And I
Mm-hmm.
do not mean that in a judgmental way. I mean that in a human way.
Mm-hmm.
That they are so vulnerable in that
Mm-hmm.
work and they can be targeted and mistreated and abused. And so the human part of me just can't make sense of that the way some people do, where they're like, yeah, they reclaim their sexuality. And I can understand that perspective fully. And I agree with not shaming these precious women who are doing what they think they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
But part of the heart for this for me is just imagining these women in a difficult position.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Pretty Woman, right? Julia Roberts like meets this man and gets kind of swept up and elevated out of this lifestyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we see her whole self come out, this like wonderful kind of fun, sweet part of her. She was a whole person the whole time. I wonder now in a case like this, how do you elevate the victims? How do you talk about them? I hope we've talked about them kindly and respectfully, but
Mm-hmm.
how do we start to care more as a society about people when they go missing or their lifestyle doesn't match what we think it should look like? Fox Hollow was this way, right? Because a lot of the victims were gay and that was a secret.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, we talk all the time about why do some victims get airtime and some victims don't get any at all? And
Mm-hmm.
This is probably the worst example of that, where I think people involved in sex work rarely get any. I mean, how often is that on the news that they're missing? Like, never,
Mm-hmm.
unless it's a serial killer and there's 20 bodies, and then we start talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. How do we elevate their experience and their safety? Considerations for their safety.
Oh gosh. Considerations for their safety, that's a bigger question, I think, than or different question. That's a different question than how do we how do we honor the victims and elevate them? I think that the first part of your question is kind of, I think, what we've been doing and something that got brought up at CrimeCon in Denver was like, there's like the weirdos who just like get off on crime, but then the whole point of CrimeCon is to like talk about cases like this and to elevate victims instead of the perpetrators. And so I think it's giving them and their families more airtime. And I
Mhm.
like what we do because, yeah, we talk about the crime, but we also talk about like the psychology behind criminals. And then also, how do we encourage and help communities come around each other and like try to prevent more, stuff like this with education and all of that. So I think it's focusing on those things rather than like focusing on the criminal. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Or the
When,
gruesome nature of the crime. Because you and I love true crime. Like, we get into it, we want to know
yeah.
things, but it's an intentional choice on our part to not go into all the details of this stuff, partially because there's plenty of podcasts that do that if that's your thing.
Hmm.
But if this was my family member, that is not the part of them that I would want shared, is their final moments with a sick
Mm-hmm.
person who hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know, that's awful to me. And
Mm-hmm.
it is relevant, and we need to hold people accountable, and understanding the nature of crimes helps hold people accountable, but their lives are more than the last 10 seconds or the last 3 hours of their life. I think that's where so much of the time goes.
Mm-hmm.
And you are right. I mean, I think we've seen this in so many ways, especially when we talk about like mass shooters, Columbine, that kind of stuff. The fixation just is super unhealthy then for people having similar urges
Mm-hmm.
or ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fantasies.
Mm-hmm. I also think that's part of why we're doing this
Mhm,
is to, encourage people to listen to ways to create safer communities.
mhm,
Encourage law enforcement to do, and I love law enforcement. I've really great people in my world who are first responders, but sometimes it doesn't go the way that it needs to. And so continuing to educate law enforcement on like even, how to operate well in DV situations and
mm.
um, you know,
Understanding victim dynamics because it's
yeah,
so different. Yeah,
exactly. And so, just continued education on all fronts.
I agree. I totally agree with that. And I'm really grateful that people brought this case to us because I was interested in the
Hmm.
plea, and I will be interested to hear what he has to say on the 17th.
Hmm.
Um, I don't have my hopes up that it'll be something super helpful, but I'm interested from a psychological perspective. But I think remembering that people in desperate situations are just people
Hmm.
in desperate situations, and so they're worthy of all of the love and respect and airtime and kindness and resources as every other case.
Hmm.
And so I would like to see more effort in some of these cases to get them closed because they really don't until there's many bodies. That's how we find out
Yeah.
about cases involving women who are in these
Hmm.
positions. So
Hmm.
that's one of my hopes, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Well, thanks for bringing the case. It's a
Of
wild
course.
one.
Thank you, Creative Mama, for the tip on the officer,
Yeah.
Jimmy Burke.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. And thank you guys always for your engagement and for sending us cases and ideas. And we're gearing up for CrimeCon, so we have some big cases coming too.
Yep. Yep. Well, thanks, Janine. And to our listeners, we love you as always.
Bye, forensic friends. I'm Janine.
And I'm Nat.
And as always, thanks for listening and join us next week for more crime, psychology, and heart.